Guys, good Thursday afternoon. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. It is an absolute pleasure. It is our pleasure to connect with communities far and wide through the I Love CVille Network, where we utilize social media and digital and mobile for the good, for the positive, to galvanize communities by championing and celebrating their stakeholders and influencers. We're very grateful for your viewership and listenership. Of course, we're live in Charlottesville, across Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world, on a program that is dynamic and allows you, the community, to be a part of it with your comments, your questions, and your perspective in feeds across all social platforms. We thank one of our fantastic partners of Greenberry's Coffee for being a part of the show. Judah's our director. If you can get that lower third on screen and show everyone how they can win free coffee for a year for Greenberry's Coffee, that would mean the world to us. Guys, Greenberry's is a locally owned coffee roaster that is making very positive moves for our community. Scott Wagner, of course, of Scott Wagner Integrative Medicine, a client and partner for nearly a decade here, and we are live in our building in Charlottesville on the downtown mall. I'm very excited for today's program, not only because this guy is a friend, but it's a guy that's doing big things and has done big things for this community for a number of years. Retired principal, CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Virginia, and an all-around A-plus guy. His name is James Pierce. Let's welcome him, Judah, to the program. James, good afternoon. Thank you kindly for joining us, and we're grateful for you coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's a pleasure. For the few that don't know who James Pierce is, please introduce yourself to everybody that's watching.
Really glad to be here, and again, guys, thanks for having me. It's a very, very warm welcome here. I'm James Pierce. I'm a 26-year resident of Charlottesville, Albemarle area, and I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Virginia, where I've been for 13 years. My career has been dedicated to developing young people. Worked at anywhere from pre-K through 12th grade, and really excited about the positive impact that that this community can have on the growth of its young people.
26 years in the community. You got me beat by 4. I came here as a first year at UVA in 2000. You have seen the community change dramatically, as have I. How did you get to Charlottesville? Why and what drove you here?
I was a student teacher at Gloucester High School. I went to school in Williamsburg, and I was driving maybe a little bit too fast down the Colonial Parkway. I had 9 applications for teaching jobs in the back seat. 6 of them went out the sunroof. I filled out the 3 that were remaining, and the first to call was Charlottesville High School. So they said, when can you be here for an interview? I said, how about noon? I drove down 64, and here we are. It's been a great opportunity for me to learn and grow as a young professional. I was an English teacher and a writing teacher at CHS, as well as a JV baseball coach, and thought I wanted to do that forever. And then I got involved in a great community of educators. Met my wife the first day of school. She was also a first-year teacher at CHS, and we've grown together here in this community and really been welcomed by many parts of it. So really happy to be a member of this community, and both of us have kind of selected roles that we can try to give back. We've also been really lucky to be surrounded by amazing people on the journey.
So the James Pierce I know is a charming, eloquent wordsmith. Were those skills utilized in charming the now Mrs. Pierce?
That's for another show.
Okay. How did you guys meet? You met at school?
Really, it was a lot of time on the basketball court, and a lot of deep research here. If you know that I'm a former basketball guy, not a good athlete, not a good basketball player at running end to end, but it's been a long time. But yeah, great group of first-year teachers that all. Many of them are still in this community, that we have a strong bond. But yeah, a lot of bonds are formed in that early teaching couple of years together.
Talk to us about the time at William & Mary. A lot of folks may not know this. College football player, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, not too high on the depth chart, but yeah,
it's quarterback.
I had one good year in high school after transferring from a tight end to a quarterback, and Mike London was actually a coach at William & Mary at the time. Charlottesvillians know former UVA head coach
Oh, yeah.
Nick London, and he recruited me. I ended up there. Ended up playing more baseball in college than football, but football and baseball were both good experiences in Williamsburg.
So you played 2 sports at William & Mary?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So was Jimmy Laycock the head coach?
It was, yeah.
Jimmy Laycock, a legend in William & Mary circles. Talk to us about how the athletic experiences, I mean, guys, 2 sports at the collegiate level speaks for itself. How the athletic experiences, trials and tribulations have helped shaped your career.
Yeah, in our office, a couple colleagues and I, we are part of the hiring team, and we always talk about how people who have been involved in the dramatic arts, like plays, who've been a part of something that, the show must go on, you have to get ready for that night. People who have been involved in sports teams and other teams really have a lot to offer as far as working in an environment like we have at the Boys and Girls Club, where we all rely on each other to get the best out of ourselves so that we can, put on a great day for the kids. So it shaped me personally as somebody who has learned to, you can't do anything by yourself, right? This show couldn't happen without the team. Our organization couldn't run without a great team. I think that extends not just to colleagues and staff that I've been fortunate to have through the schools and at the Boys and Girls Club, but also on the board of directors where I work. We've got 35 just really motivated, excited volunteers who give their time to help put on this great youth development opportunity that we have at our 6 local clubs.
Well said. So you arrive in Charlottesville in 96?
Yeah.
Okay, 96. You come here down 64 as what, 22?
That's right.
22-year-old?
Yep.
So what's the welcome to Charlottesville? What was the first impression of our fair city like for 22-year-old James Pierce?
Gosh, I was riding my bike everywhere.
Yeah?
I'd take my backpack to the Food Lion at Squire Hill Apartments where I was living and put my groceries in my backpack and drive them back to my apartment. That had a very small radius at the time, and I think through the people and the opportunities in this town, I think now it's not just a bike ride to the Food Lion. It's just the aperture has opened so much. And so as my experience has grown, I've gotten to know how generous this community is, and how supportive they can be.
You start as a JV baseball coach,
Yep.
teaching English and writing at Charlottesville.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember of that first year as a teacher at CHS?
The kids taught me more than I taught them.
Wow.
For sure, absolutely, 100%. And many of them I still know, I'm still in contact with. This morning I ran into a past former student who's a professor at JMU, and I hear one of my first year students is now on our board of directors at the club. So just it continues to be a community that that welcomes and continues to sustain our efforts.
Talk to us or give us the flip book of how you got involved first with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Virginia.
Sure, I was the principal at Clark Elementary, and a terrific school. It's one of the few that's walkable. It's a small slice of Charlottesville. You can really get to know the community at Clark, and it's an amazing group. The parents are super supportive. The kids are have such high aspirations for themselves and supported by a great staff. And I was working there. It was my kind of dream job. I loved the school, and at the end of my time at Clark, there was a terrific PTO that was starting to support a 5K, and for fourth graders to support their movement on to fifth grade, because in this town, fourth grade is the end of elementary. You go to upper elementary at Walker, so there's a lot of transitions in there. One thing that the PTO and staff wanted to do was provide opportunities for every fourth grader that was moving on to have a laptop or some kind of at the time there were not one-to-one laptops like there are now. We had this 5K with the help of who else but Mark Lorenzoni helped us to start this 5K. I ended up doing a lot of things outside of school and recognized that there are a lot of differences between what kids experience in the out-of-school time. I think if you look at data locally, a lot of what happens in schools, kids make the same amount of growth, regardless of where they start. There's like a track that they follow. And what I started to recognize is that there's a huge difference in what happens during out-of-school time. And so the Boys and Girls Club, the leader had just moved on. They were doing a national search. They didn't find somebody that they matched exactly with their philosophy. So they called and said, "Are you the guy that visited the houses of members or of kids in your school district before you got started on the job? I said, yep. And they said, we'd love to tell you about the club. So through that experience, got to know the board members, got to know more about the mission, and just fell in love with it. I called them back after spring break and I said, you still interested in talking? And that was 13 and a half years ago.
Wow. When you took the job, did you think at 13 and a half years you'd still be with the job?
I didn't really know. I was really excited about the opportunity right in front of me at the time, and didn't really know what I would encounter. But what I found was just a home. It was a terrific, supportive group of volunteers, a very talented staff, and then kids that were just thriving in an environment where they were put in front of some of the best opportunities during out of school time.
How challenging was it to leave a principal position? I mean, as an educator, the principal position in a lot of ways is the pinnacle of the path, of the educational path. Walk us through that decision making.
The staff was amazing at Clark. I think the teachers taught me far more than I contributed to the environment. It was a place where it's still, many of the teachers are still there, that there is a heart for kids at the Clark School and in the Clark School neighborhoods that sustains the great community school. So it wasn't easy, but at the same time, my aspiration was to be a superintendent, and I was 35 or something at the time. This was a way to be leading in a community that would kind of boost my opportunity a little quicker, and it turned out to be a great decision. I didn't really know much about nonprofit management. Again, everything I learned, there was a supportive board. There was a terrific group of staff members who guided me and taught me how to use what I could bring best to the role to fit into a way that would really make an impact in the community. And so I'm thankful to say that was a very patient group. But it wasn't the easiest decision, but it was one that ultimately I think helped me and hopefully the community.
Offer us an anecdote of those early years, taking the job with the Boys and Girls Club, and how you realized right away that it was the right decision, and how you realized right away that you were going to have with your team, with the board, with your team members, such a positive impact on this community.
One of my first memories was with Glenn Rust, touring him when he joined the board, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. We've joked about this story several times, but we used to run a Boys and Girls Club in the Parks and Rec building at Washington Park before the Cherry Avenue facility was built. And we run a couple of different programs that focus on different developmental levels, and some of them are single gender. This time at Washington Park, there was a group of young ladies meeting, and they were talking about topics for young ladies. And I took Glenn into the facility to give him a tour and talk about this great little beehive of activity that was happening in this club. Didn't know that we were walking into this very important girls only type of environment. And we walk in, I open the door, and they all look to the door and they say, "Stop! It's a man!" And so they had to stop, and it was a great opportunity to talk about how we have different experts coming in and talking with our young people, and that was just a great environment for me, because I knew that those young people had an adult in the room that cared about them, that they were working on things that mattered to them, and that they had a safe space where they could talk about it. So Glenn was a great sport about it, and I think he's been a great board member ever since.
Glenn is undoubtedly a great community asset. Let's talk about the positive progress with the club over your time and tenure. We have certainly the most current project that we'd like to highlight here, which we will. But before we get to it, some other positive projects that you like to acknowledge.
Yeah, I think needs to be said again, like Clark or any other experience that I've been a part of, none of this happens just with one person. It's the product of a community and board members and staff members and kids and families that contribute to this success. And so I think of the opening of the James River Club in Scottsville as a terrific example of what our organization is capable of. A group of community citizens came together and said, we really would like for there to be a Boys and Girls Club here. And our board said, this is a lot. We've already got a lot going on. Tell us more about it. And the citizens just wouldn't give up. They said, here's what's happening. Here's how few kids have a place to be during out of school time. We need a summer program. We really have to get some enthusiasm around this. And looking back now, that was 2014. We're in our, 6th, 7th, 8th year now, where we've built something out of nothing. And the community came behind that to make it happen. The gentlemen that we have in charge of that club, Jelani Simpson and James Miller, do a terrific job. And some of the photos in the deck that we have for you, the kids wearing the medals are from the James River Club. Just think about that experience not happening. What's the cost of not having a Boys and Girls Club type of experience? And it's kids not having the opportunity to aspire to their great futures. They don't have a chance to build, to join a sports team. They wouldn't have a chance to build something in a STEM program. And, those citizens and these staff members have gotten together to pull it off and make it happen and be reliable year after year. That was one. I think about when our club at Southwood was serving kids, 20 kids in an old laundry room. Habitat for Humanity has been a terrific partner for us over the years. Rent-free space in the building that we currently occupy. Started in one 20 by 20 room, serving 20 kids. Now, through several expansions and the grace of Habitat and the partnership between the club and Habitat, we're serving about 160 kids a day, and they've allowed us to add 2 different mobile units so that we can accommodate the need. And so I think that's an example. One, the James River, where we've relied on community will to get us going, and the other, an example of a community partnership that has sustained us to make a huge impact on kids ages 6 through 18 in the Southwood community.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to do on the show is to drive awareness to topics that need attention. Mm-hmm. We understand the following that's a part of the network, and we try to utilize that for the good. I think often the community, Charlottesville and Almar in particular, are known for the resources and the wealth in the community. I think it's paramount that we highlight that while that is the case for a good portion, there's also a very large portion of the community that needs a foundation of support and education and engagement and advice, and you guys are providing that. I really was compelled this past Thursday when you gave the presentation of the new facility and the squash courts that are being built. You used an anecdote of a young lady that came to the club, I believe without being able to speak English. English was a second language. And through her time at the club and through her support structure, she not only had success, but is now a key team member at the club. Can you relay that story to everyone?
You just said it perfectly, Jerry. When we're at our best, that's what we're doing, is taking kids where they are, identifying the strengths that they have to share with our community, offering them a path and a safe place to be. And so, this young lady that I'm really flattered that you remembered verbatim exactly what that story was all about, is what youth development programs, not just the Boys and Girls Club, but youth development programs need to provide. It's a partnership between families, it's community, it's staff, everybody coming together to identify what the needs and aspirations are of each individual young person. What we say is that the main need of every kid is to have one adult who's crazy about them. And I think what that story shows is that there was at least one person who was never going to give up on that kid. And now, as an example, that person has turned around and paid it forward and given back in so many ways to that club, where she became a reliable mentor to the young people who were then 6, 7, 8 years old, like she was when she came in. And, the story repeats itself. If you ignore a young person, if you allow their, interests to kind of linger out there unattended, their light can kind of turn off a little bit. And, there's a lot of different on-ramps that kids have over their youth to get involved and charged up about things. But when we don't take advantage of when they show us that they're interested in something, it's an opportunity wasted. And I'm just really, again, flattered and thankful that you remembered that. and also that we've been able to make that not a one and done story, that it keeps repeating itself, and many other young people who have that path. And maybe they're working in our community in law enforcement. Maybe they're working at UVA. Maybe they're off in a different city now raising a family. But we've had a small part, not certainly ever the only part, of their development to make them into productive, responsible, and caring citizens.
Everyone wants to be seen, heard, and understood. I think when it comes down to it, there's a lot of commonalities with us, and not us, you and I, or Judah, but people in general. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be understood, we want to be loved. I think what you guys are doing offers a lot of these basics, these feelings that often aren't present. And you guys have this foundation of seen, heard, understood, loved, supported with your clubs. Can you put in perspective the levels of engagement you've seen with kids in the area in your 13 and a half years with the club?
That's a great question. There's two pictures in the deck. One of them is kids behind a table, raising money for the Wounded Warriors. And the other one is like a crowd of people, looks like a cheerleader, and a couple kids in the front with a staff member in a maroon shirt in the back. And those are two examples I think of when I think of engagement of kids. The Wounded Warrior example, our Torch Club at the Orange Club, that's in Orange County up the road, got together and said, what do we want to raise money for, and how do we want to give back to our community? I don't know about you, but I was 10, 11, 12 years old. I was thinking about my baseball cards and, what time practice was. Yeah. And
my Ryan Sandberg rookie card.
There you go, 1982. Right?
Second baseman for the Cubs. Look at this man.
Yeah. The community spirit that our young people will show if they are given a platform and an opportunity, it blows my mind all the time. And I've been doing this for a long time. So when we give kids a platform, we give them staff who are inspiring to them, then they return the favor, right? So they raised, you can see in the shot, the young person's holding some dollars that they raised. The pride that our kids feel in doing something for their community like that, there's no replacement. That's buy-in to the community. That's a comfortable place. That's a welcome to them by the community. You've made a difference for us. The other example of the James River kids, with a staff member in the back. It was actually Ty, who was our staff member of the year for, I think, January of this year. He knew that there was a teacher work day coming up, and we are open all day on teacher work days so that kids, can be in a positive, safe place, families can continue their work, keeps the economy rolling, and people don't have to take days off. Rather than just saying it's going to be a normal club day or, we're just come hang out, this is an example of what we do. We set up programs, and so Ty gave the kids the responsibility. Rather than the adults planning the day, it was if you want to be a cheerleader, be a cheerleader. We're going to have a basketball tournament. We're going to sell concessions. We're going to have signs in the stands to hype this whole thing. And it was a day full of kid-led activities that they were so proud to have taken a part in. And so I say that's when we're at our best, when we have developmentally appropriate things that put the ownership over the success of the event into their hands. And they came through. It was like one of the most amazing club days. And you just see, looking back on that, what an amazing job the staff member did and how much the kids were bought in. Everybody had a role for that day. They are all excited about it. They were, usually oh man, we don't get to see our friends at school that day. They were pumped to be in the club that day and every day because they know that what they have to put into that really matters to its ultimate success. So
it's awesome.
Yeah. So engagement, when you said the magic word, that's what we're after, is engagement of kids in a positive way that captivates them and gets them involved in something positive.
Guys, this club is amazing. They engage and they empower our youth and offer some ideas of where to go, but they encourage the youth to find that path themselves. I mean, it's just amazing. How did you guys, and Carol, we'll get to the Queen of Jack Jewett is watching, Carol Thorpe. We'll get to your comment about James here in a matter of moments. We'll get to the folks and the comments from Stephen and Stacy who are watching the program, along with Jennifer watching the show. If you'd like to give the Boys and Girls Club some props or ask James a question, please put it in the feed and I will relay it live on air. How did the club manage the pandemic?
Thanks for asking. That's really a tribute to our staff. So I will say our staff and board have gone out of their way many times to do what's needed in the community. We're certainly by no means the only organization that did this, but we had to flex. And we were no longer seeing kids in person for a good long time. So as a location-based youth development facility, to not have access to our main place of doing business was an extreme challenge. Thankfully, we had people step up to first help us deliver meals. We were providing thousands of meals a week for many weeks. Howie and Diane Long stepped up and supported that. Diane's still a longtime board member for us, and hey, what's needed here? And what do we have capacity to do? So we set up in our parking lots and distributed meals. That was early on. When we were then comfortable going back out into the community, we were delivering books to kids, making sure that they were connected. Again, early on, a couple of months after the pandemic started, we delivered thousands of books to hundreds of different kids over the early part of the pandemic to make sure that we had, and one of our volunteers, Suzanne Tanner, mentioned, she's like, that's like eyes on eyes. I was like, that's the perfect phrase. We wanted to have eyes on eyes of our kids. So, rather than picking them up at schools, we were driving our club buses around and just making sure, we saw kids and that they had books or STEM supplies. We did a STEM supply delivery. And then, later just to show how many phases there were during this time, not only meal delivery, not just book delivery, but then also it was opening our locations back up. Even after the governor said that nobody was back, we were hosting all-day schools at our clubs, right? So, we had an amazing showing from our staff who, again, doubled down on the futures of kids by saying we can't have them be disconnected, we've got to keep them involved, and opened our clubs for access to school. So we had kids with laptops sitting in rooms doing school with internet access. Lots of our neighborhoods don't necessarily have internet access that's reliable. We were also feeding them lunch during that time, and so we were trying to keep things as regular as we could for our members during that time. As we've come out of the pandemic, we've hosted I think a dozen or more COVID clinics. We have one today at Cherry Avenue. It still goes on. I just spoke to our front desk. Madeline is amazing at Cherry Avenue. Anybody who's watching knows Madeline from our club and the community. So, she says we've got the health department coming in today again to administer a booster shot or two. And so that's something we continue to do, but certainly did have happening during the pandemic.
We'll acknowledge some of the viewers and listeners that are watching. John Blair, we love you, John Blair. JB in Stanton, watching right now.
Great.
Bill McKenzie, hello. Welcome, Wild Bill, to the program. We have Kelsey, who is watching in Crozet right now, that absolutely singing her support for the club. Johnny Ornalis, the owner of El Mariachi in Guadalajara, hello and welcome to the program. Carol Thorpe says this for James. Jerry, I had the pleasure of meeting James about 15 years ago while I was directing his talented wife, Erica, in some local theater productions. Yep. Kudos to him for the important work he is doing with our community's youth. Very well needed.
It means a lot coming from Carol.
Jennifer says this, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Virginia are one of the best nonprofits in this community. I am always impressed and amazed with how many kids they serve throughout Central Virginia. Please ask James where he would like to see the club expand to next.
That's great. Great question. Thank you for that comment. So we serve about 750 kids when we're at our full capacity right now. When 2009, I think it was about 250 kids. So there's been a lot of growth during this time. We've expanded Southwood multiple times. We've added the James River Club in Scottsville. Cherry Avenue Club has come online. So there's been a lot of growth. The question about where we go next is a tough one, because sustaining the current effort is a $5 million a year effort. And we are a very small to medium-sized nonprofit, but that effort is a really tough one. We never want to get into a situation where we're having to say no to kids. And so there are some grant opportunities out there that for time to time we've passed on because it's a 2 or 3 year grant. And saying yes to a new location without knowing that it's going to be a generational factor in the community is a tough sell for our community, for our board, for our staff, because we don't want to be in the business of ever saying no or working backwards. So if there are enough community supporters, if there are enough resources, if there's an identified location, those are all things that we've over the years learned are required if you're going to start a new one. Right? We've talked to a lot of neighboring communities. We've actually advised and consulted with, neighboring tangential communities to here that have said, we want to start a club. We're never opposed to having that conversation. We have to be ready for it. But it's not manifest destiny. We're not out here saying, we've got to take over, because there's Big Brothers Big Sisters, there's YMCA, there's after school programs, there's a great impact that all of this community network of youth development providers in schools and families need to be there in order for the overall impact of youth development to take place. So we won't go somewhere where there's already something happening, right? If something's happening, and we charge $15 to $35 a year for membership per year, so it's and we scholarship it if people can't afford. So if there is something out there like that already in a community, we won't go. It's not needed. If there is a need, we are never immune to a conversation. So that is a long and gigantic but important preface to what I'm about to say.
Sure.
We go to law enforcement, school people, departments of social service, interested community volunteers, and ask, if we were going to start over from zero, where should we go? And they always name exactly where we are right now. And we haven't been in the habit of saying recently, where should we go next? But again, open to that conversation. I think the Crozet area has changed a lot recently. There's a lot of need in Greene County. There's not the transportation department is still running, I think, a very successful after-school program. Transportation departments don't typically get into that business, but good for them. They stepped up and did it. Louisa has a great need, and I think a lot of groundswell. There's a lot of really terrific community efforts. And I and our organization are always open to, if it's not us saying it, to talking about a group and saying, how does this look? Here's our experience. Here's where we have failed. Here's where we have succeeded, and can we share that information? If it ends up being a Boys and Girls Club, great, but no pride of authorship, right? This is something that a group of community members can do. We just have a certain brand that we want to put out there, and that is sustainable, reliable, high quality. And if we can do those things and start a new location, great. But that is not easy to do. So whenever we've taken on something new, we want to make sure it sustains for 5 years so that we have a chance to grow roots and really get to know a community well, learn a donor base, get a volunteer base involved, and then you've got a really reliable network for kids that they can count on, that kind of results in all these success stories.
Fantastic answer. And speaking of new, now's a good time to highlight, and Judah's doing a fantastic job of rotating those photos on screen. Bravo, J-Dubs. Highlight a facility that everyone is excited for, James Pierce.
Again, came out of a long conversation with our board, with local school system and law enforcement, Department of Social Service, to identify a need that wasn't fully met. The after-school program in Albemarle County does a great job. It is also not intended to serve every single kid. And so I think they did a study in February 2017, where I remember sitting at a school board meeting and talking about 1,000 kids in the county of Albemarle who need a positive, safe place to be during out-of-school time. And
1,000?
1,000 in the county. We also then started looking around at the area that we were already serving. One of the pieces of guidance from our board is let's go deeper, not wider. So how do we go deeper in the communities that we are already serving? And at the Jewett Middle School, just Journey, new name of Jewett, starting soon, Journey Middle School.
I didn't know that.
Coming up soon. So, in the campus, we are already serving a limited program. It's an outstanding program, but it is not a year-round program. So in all of our other clubs, we do serve a year-round population, so members can rely on us every day. In the club we've been serving at Jewett and now Greer, we love our partners. The school principals there, the teachers, the guidance counselors, the staff are terrific. The parents are amazing. But we do get bounced around, from time to time because it's a bustling community. And what I say to you next is going to tell you why. Almost 25% of all kids in Albemarle attend school on the campus of Albemarle High School, Greer, and Jewett. It's a quarter of all the kids, 12,000, 13,000 students in the county. I think about 3,000 or maybe a little bit more attend school on that campus. And so there is no lack of need for space, for field space, for classroom space. And, the educators on this campus do an amazing job, but it's crowded. And that affects us and our ability to serve in a high quality way our members. And so, combination of the need for out of school time recognized by the county schools and the political will and the support of a very generous community really allowed this new building to happen. It is what I'm about to describe about this new facility is a tribute to the 5 other clubs that we have going. No one would invest in this if what we were putting out there was a low quality effort. So, Madison County, Orange County, Scottsville, Southwood, Cherry Avenue, success that we've had there and the impact that families and teachers and members appreciate has come to full fruition here. So the community has gotten behind this effort. We have planned it over many years, and we're proud to say that we're going to be able to serve over 500 kids every year at a new space on the campus of Albemarle High School, Journey Middle School, and Greer Elementary. It's a 52,000 square foot facility.
52,000?
Yes. We're moving our administrative space over there, so part of it's offices, but lots of youth development space. It will have space for over 100 teens every year or every day, and that's something that we haven't really captured the upper middle school and high school members on this campus. It will now have its own dedicated teen wing. It will have space for 200 minimum elementary and middle school members on the youth wing. It will have 2 outdoor sports spots for hoops and other hard court spaces. It will have a giant green field for football, tag, capture the flag, etc. It is surrounded by woods, and if you've never played capture the flag in the woods, you haven't lived. I mean, the bike cycling program and the outdoor education programs we have running at this site will be second to none. They'll be amazing because of the surrounding environment we have. And I'm proud to say also that we've got 2 indoor gyms at this space. It will be a full-size, high school-size gymnasium, which our teens at whatever club always love. Sometimes we don't get the little ones on there, so we're actually building on a youth gym as well. So a space this size needs that much, complexity and, have the ability to run fitness programs and learning programs and service programs all at the same time for different developmental stages. This building really took all of that into account. Another thing that I'm kind of expecting that we've already kind of hinted at here is the presence of a squash program in this building. We're so lucky to have the generous community spirit of Merrill and Jaffrey Woodruff, who are our lead donors in this project, who said, squash is not required here. We love what you do. The summer reading program at Cherry Avenue, all the leadership programs you do are absolutely inspiring to us. But hey, let's start a conversation about squash and the impact that it can have in our community. Immediately, before this building was even an idea, kids from this program have been at Boar's Head for about 4 or 5 years, working with the UVA squash program. Mark Allen and his team and Dean Russell at Boar's Head have been really welcome and generous to have us in. Over the years, our kids have really loved to learn the sport, and it's a great opportunity for us. I'm going to take a breath and say, the headline here is we're building 4 squash courts in this facility so that kids have access to a terrific sport that is increasingly international and matches a lot of the backgrounds of the kids that we have attending school on this campus.
It's amazing. 52,000 square feet. And I'm going to highlight the squash aspect here because we both love the sport. But before we get to it, can you put in comparison a 52,000 square foot facility with some of the others that are out there? I mean, this sounds like an epicenter, exponential epicenter here, like one of the best of the best.
It'll be amazing. And Cherry Avenue is 24,000 square feet.
Wow, that really puts it in perspective, because that's huge.
Yeah. So it's a big facility, serve, almost 200 kids a day now. When we get back to real post-pandemic, it'll be over 200 a day at Cherry Avenue. And so, yeah, it's large. It has an adequately sized administrative space, so it won't be one-to-one as far as Cherry Avenue versus the Albemarle Campus Club we're talking about. But yeah, I think the squash courts add an element. They can be used for dance. They can be used to teach kids how to throw a ball for the first time. They can be used for lots of movement-focused activities, not just squash. That's an amazing thing about the space that we're building.
Sure.
But overall, we're just thrilled with it. And it would be selfish for us to utilize this facility just for ourselves. So we are open during out-of-school time hours. Those hours actually end up being the same number of hours that kids go to school every year.
That's awesome.
Yep. If you think about all day during the summertime, it's like 10 or 11 hours during the summer we're open every day, plus 4 hours every day after school. It about equates to the number of hours that kids are in school, so it's a lot of hours. However, during the school day, we're really expecting the schools to utilize the facility that we're building, so it really will have a community impact. We're also hoping that the community will come in and have community meetings, make it a true community center, and let us know when they want to be holding neighborhood association meetings and other meetings that I know are now virtual. When we come back, we're hoping to be the main host for some of those meetings that can make this a community gathering place, which I know is the aspiration of the county government, county school system, to have a transformation on this site over time, to be really welcoming to the whole community.
I love the multi-dimensional use potential of the space.
Mm-hmm.
I love we're both sports guys. I love the sports-centric nature of the space. And I love the opportunities to learn life lessons through team sports that come with a space like this. I very much love the squash aspect of the space. It's a sport that, cut to the chase, often does have a barrier of entry associated with club membership. Here you're making a sport that could be enjoyed for a lifetime. I mean, it's a sport that someone can play. That's why I'm so excited for our son to learn the sport. That can be played for a lifetime. And friendships and colleagues through business or life that can be established through this sport over the course of a life. You're bringing this in a non-barrier of entry form for the community. I know that's important to you and means a lot to you because you're quite the player yourself. Can you highlight that aspect for everyone that's watching?
Yeah, Jerry, and I think it has some analogies in our past behavior. We had a sailing program in Orange, thanks to John Sponsky and a committed group of volunteers. That's amazing. We've had a cycling program, thanks to Carl Frischkorn and several other great volunteers. So this is just the next thing that we're taking on that is an equipment-rich, equipment-heavy sport, like golf or other things. Like the barrier of entry to these sports is kind of high when you look at it. Shoes, rackets, balls, space. It's not like soccer. We love soccer. And
it's not like basketball.
Right, hoops,
Yeah.
There's a court in a lot of places you can show up, publicly available. But squash is a sport that kind of overall suffers from a pretty high barrier to entry, and and there's no excuse for that. Like, why couldn't we be building more squash courts? It is an international game. It is played in the top 20 men's and women's right now. I think maybe there are 2 Americans, and we love this. Like on the campus at Greer specifically, there are 200 kids maybe who speak a first language other than English. There's so many different nationalities represented, and not squash only, but soccer, other sports that are internationally very popular. We want to be present here because it's another step to welcoming a more international audience, and I love it because we always say, that's why we have a STEM director. We're one of the only clubs or out of school time programs that's invested in a full-time STEM person who's a former club kid at this club. We did that because we want kids to have the best opportunities, and why shouldn't our kids have the opportunity to have the best experience? So that's motivating to me, it's motivating to our organization to provide an opportunity like having 4 squash courts in the basement, having a full-time squash pro to be there to help shape what the experience is going to be like, and then welcoming through lots of different on-ramps kids from the school during the school day. Maybe there's a PE class, that ends up happening here. Maybe Albemarle High School ends up having the first public school squash team that competes in, other leagues around.
That's
and breaks down some of these barriers that we have. That, with a collected group of people as talented as we all have in this community, we're going to be able to figure out some great uses for this space.
Very well said. Deborah Kaplan is watching, Director of Outreach at the Ronald McDonald House. Deborah, I believe it is. The James River Boys and Girls Club is a fantastic partner to the Ronald McDonald House of Charlottesville. They painted bunches of rocks for our Painted Rock Garden this year. Nonprofits helping each other is one thing that makes this community so wonderful. Bravo, James.
Awesome. Great example. Another thing that, our kids felt really great that they were asked to do that. And Ronald McDonald House reached out, asked us to do it. It was mutually beneficial. And what a great example.
Vanessa Parkhill watching the program. She is just one of our fantastic viewers and listeners. We've dubbed her the Queen of Earlysville. She says squash is such a fantastic and great sport. This is a fantastic opportunity for the community. Where exactly will the new facility be situated? So Judah, as he's given us the play-by-play of proximity, perhaps you could put a couple of slides that indicate that proximity on screen. Vanessa, if you have a moment, and all those that are watching or listening to the show, if you could give me a brief moment and look at the screens here, give us the thumbs up. Where exactly will that be located, James?
From Stonefield Shopping Center, go toward Albemarle High School on Hydraulic, get into the campus of Albemarle High School right there, and we are in the intersection between Albemarle High School and what will be Journey Middle School, currently Jewett. So right there on the campus of Albemarle High School.
That's big time. Judah, thank you for getting that map on screen. More comments coming in here. This is from Jennifer. She says, this has been a fantastic interview. We have seen firsthand how the Boys and Girls Club has helped members in our neighborhood and our community. Thank you for highlighting nonprofits, Jerry, and for being a champion of the community. We also read in the newspaper that James is going to retire from his position. He will certainly be missed because we all know in the community what the club has accomplished under his time with the club. Please ask him about that process of retiring and what he may be doing next. We can't wait to see what his next steps are.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk about that. It's really important for me to say again, no achievement is ever due to one person. The team around this club and this organization have made it what it is. The families who have put their trust in us to be with their most precious resource, or what that's what we wouldn't exist without it. And so I would say, transitions of leadership are terrific opportunities, and the next leader of this organization, if they get half the support that I have during my 13 years here, will be golden. And I know because of the leadership of the search team, led by Sandra Thomas, former board president of our club, and Liza Borchis, who's the current board president, and Faye Giles, who's co-chairing. This is an organization that doesn't do anything halfway when it comes to decisions as important as leadership. So we are in the midst of a CEO transition process. I will always be here for the club. It will, I hope to be a help to the new person, and to, this community is going to have me whether it wants me or not. I love this mission. I love this club. I love all the possibility that still remains. And I'm excited. Every time we are in any type of search, whether it's for a part-time staff member or a club director or anything, we always try to increase the capacity of the organization. And in this case, the organization has an opportunity to make a change to find somebody amazing. And I have no doubt, because of the track record, that we will find exactly the right person. So I'm humbled by the comment. I again have to point out, lots of people go into making this organization what it is and as successful as it can be. My next role is going to be TBD. It's a move about flexibility for me at this point in my life and my career. What I will be doing is supporting local nonprofits through consulting, foundation support perhaps, and then I'm a certified executive coach also. So I have a couple clients and maybe working with a few more in the coming years.
You're fantastic. I love what you stand for. I love the passion you bring. I love the quiet leadership qualities that you embody. I love that you get the best out of people that are around you. I love that you lead in ways that empower the people around you. You do it in a way where the folks, and I mentioned this earlier, that are around you want to be great because they know each day you are bringing your A-plus game and your best. We're fortunate in this community to have the Pierce family and James Pierce in it. Is this transition time for you something that is almost in some ways bittersweet? Because I know how much the mission means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard for me to walk away from something that has been so important and is so important to me. It is my community, and so what we're invested in the work of the Boys and Girls Club continues to matter in big ways. It matters to everyone in this community, what happens with our young people, and that we continue to invest in our young people is a critical priority that we all need to keep our eye on. So, as far as my career and time in education, and then the same amount of time now in this work for youth development, it's very gratifying to know that there have been a community of people around this success, and that community of people is going to include me just in a different way.
Can we highlight what you'd like to see for the next 26 years? You've been in the community 26 years, but for the next 26 years in this Charlottesville and Albemarle County and Central Virginia community, as we make a commitment to the next couple generations of kids that are being raised and nurtured in this community?
Yeah, I'd love to see a community of adults recognizing that these young people are going to be in charge of those adults' future. At a certain point,
well said.
This is the group that's going to determine what happens, and that they have an amazing flexibility to think, to problem solve, and to rise to whatever the occasion is that they face, and to invest now as if their backs are against the wall. It's so hard to prove prevention. It is easy to see a crisis as it happens. I want us to act as a community with the conviction that what we do right now has a critical impact on the future of our community.
Well said. Thanks. Very well said. Some final thoughts. You've made and we knew it was going to go when we were planning here. We knew this interview was going to go great because James is poignant and has deep perspective, and he's passionate of what he has done in his 26 years in Charlottesville. How about some closing messages and thoughts for all those that are watching?
Just really pleased to have been a part of this effort for so long, and I can't wait to see what's next. Really proud of what this community can do when it works at its best together. We've heard a lot of examples from people calling in today, giving those examples, but that would be my aspiration. Just really very much thankful. Want to express so much gratitude for those who have supported us in so many ways, and to continue to work in a collaborative way to show that we care about young people.
He's fantastic, guys. For those that are asking, and we see a handful of you guys are, the interview is going to be archived in totality on ilovecville.com or wherever you get your podcast. We are equally as excited as you guys are, the viewers and listeners, of what's in store on the campus of Albemarle High School. I think the 52,000 square foot state-of-the-art educational and athletic epicenter based around engagement and being seen, heard, and understood is something that's just going to make Charlottesville and Central Virginia an even better place for all of us to live. And this place is pretty darn good right now. James Pierce, you hit a grand slam today. You hit for the cycle today, the baseball analogy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Jerry. It's really a pleasure to be here and talking about something that we all love so much.
We'll have on tomorrow's program, guys, Lee Vogler of Danville's City Council, 3-term city councilor in Danville, Virginia, to highlight something that I think could help create educational and social equity in the community, and that's a DORA in the city of Charlottesville, with revenues from this new source of income being allocated to educational and social equity endeavors. So Lee Vogler tomorrow, on which should be a very well watched and followed show. For James Pierce and Judah Wickhauer, my name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille Show on the I Love CVille Network. Take care, everyone. It's fantastic.